I have been a practicing attorney for going on 2 decades and have represented many people, too many to count, in criminal court. And I'm getting ready to show you a case where I'm telling you, you should never do what this woman did during her sentencing. Never. If you find yourself in the unfortunate position of having to stand before a judge during sentencing, never, ever do what this lady did. Now, this is a fascinating story. It's a sad story of a 68-year-old woman receiving a long prison sentence, 68 years old. She brought it completely upon herself, both inside and outside the courtroom. Now, we'll get into this and explain to you what I'm talking about. Okay, so before we get into this, please go over to Amazon.com, grab a copy of my book, Education and Justice, so that you'll have a tool in your possession on how you can help your African-American son come through public schools and get the very best education that he can get. Because I'm warning you, the public school system mistreats African-American male students, and you need to know what to do about it, and you'll find that out in this book. All right, so this story concerns this woman, Tina Peters, a MAGA election denier. She basically believed Trump. She believed the big lie that the election had been stolen from Trump. And she was a clerk, so she was in a position to try to prove that the election had been stolen from Trump. And exactly what she did to try and help Trump prove that is what she was ultimately found guilty of. So I'm going to play you some video here in just a second, but I want you to see what the woman was accused of doing. So at trial, she was convicted of helping an outsider, Conan Hayes, a former professional surfer turned technology wizard, to gain unauthorized access to one of Mesa County's Dominion machines in May 2021. Remember, Fox News had to pay Dominion machines a lot of money for defaming the company. Remember that? I mean, a lot of money. So this woman, she helped this man, Conan Hayes, capture county passwords and sensitive data about Dominion's proprietary software that showed up 3 months later at an event questioning the results of the election hosted by Mike Lindell. That is this guy, the so-called pillow guy, the founder of the betting company MyPillow, who is a prolific purveyor of election lies. This was reported by the New York Times. All right, so she basically allows someone to gain access to the election data for Mesa County in Colorado. And for that, she was found guilty, and she received a long prison sentence for her participation in trying to prove that the election was stolen from Trump. But it's what she did in court during sentencing that made things so much worse for her. She would have gotten a much lower sentence, maybe not even sentenced at all to prison. But the way she behaved in court, don't do that. Don't do that. And as an attorney, this is what I saw when I looked at this story. Other people are just, laughing, or they're angry about what happened. The judge was very vocal about his displeasure with the way she handled this situation. But he was also very displeased at the way she handled herself in court. Typically, during sentencing, the defendant is begging for his or her life. I mean, begging. We're putting forth, I can't tell you how many times I've been in this situation, because typically trials have 2 phases, the guilt and innocence phase. And then if there is a guilty verdict, then you go into the second phase, which is the sentencing, right? And during the sentencing, it is full stop trying to keep your client from going to prison. You throw everything you can in front of the judge. You typically need to show remorse. You need to show that you're sorry for what you did. You don't need to try to relitigate the case, because at this point, the judge has your freedom in his or her hand. So you should be humble. You should be begging for your life, especially when you're 68 years old and you're facing all this prison time. But that is not what this woman did. And this is the real story. So let me play this video for you and you'll see for yourself.
It's with a heavy heart that I hear the vile accusations and the anger levied against me for what I did to serve the people of Mesa County. Maintaining my innocence is not disrespect for the law. I respect the jury verdict based on the evidence that they were allowed to hear. There's much that they weren't allowed to hear. All right, I'm going to move along.
So she's starting out wrong. She's starting out wrong. Wow, she is completely starting this thing out completely wrong, maintaining her innocence, relitigating her case. And then she said to the judge, I respect the jury's opinion based on what they were allowed to hear. They were not allowed to hear a whole lot of evidence. She is basically throwing shade at the judge at that point because he's the one who decided what was admissible and what was not admissible. So she is basically saying, you were unfair to me, Judge. You did not treat me right. What you did was not legal. And that's the reason why I'm in this situation. Oh, that is the worst way, absolutely. If, you know what, you wait until the appeal and you argue that to the appellate court. You don't tell the judge to his face that what he did, his rulings and so on, are erroneous and an abuse of discretion and an abuse of his power and all of that. That is not the time to do that. Right now, you need to be begging for your life, showing some remorse and so on. But it gets worse. Watch this.
Sorry?
I'm not going to let you
go that's
on
fine.
About things that are completely irrelevant to the sentence.
This is irrelevant.
No, it's not. I've let you go on enough about this, but the votes are the votes. You still didn't answer the question. If this is my ballot and I put it in the machine, whatever it tabulates is whatever it tabulates.
No, it doesn't. It changes.
You're not letting me finish.
Okay,
whatever
please.
it tabulates is whatever it tabulates. My hand vote, my ballot remains the same. They counted those ballots. Did they not?
I understand what you're saying,
Did
Your Honor.
they count the ballots?
No, the ballot images were changed, and that's what the total shows. Okay, I'll move off of this because I can see that I would encourage to read the report number 3.
I've read them, ma'am.
You've read all of them?
I've read those reports. They were given to me at some point, I believe.
Good. Well, so you know what I'm saying is true. All right, let me move on. It's not funny. My life is on the line here, Your Honor.
No, you're the one who's making this allegation that, one,
It's
I think
not
it's
an
funny,
allegation.
and two, that I know it's true. You're saying that as if I believe you, and I did not say that.
Okay.
That is
All
why
right.
I made the sound, because it's insulting to me for you to just put that in a record in front of all of these people that I believe something to be true.
Okay, and I apologize for that, Your Honor. That wasn't my intent. I do apologize for that. It gets a little fiery when your life is on the line, and I apologize.
So wow. She's standing there during sentencing. She's already been found guilty by the jury. The case has already been litigated. There's nothing that she can say at this point to the judge to get past that guilty verdict. And instead of standing there and pleading for her case and showing all the reasons why, he should not send her to prison. She ultimately does that, but it's too late at this point. The judge is sitting there now offended, insulted, that she is accusing him of doing things, untoward things. And he is exacerbated. I mean, at point you can count the numbers, you can count the years being added to her sentence. Just because she's standing there defiant, she's standing there arrogantly with pride, all in service to Donald Trump. Now that is a part of the story as well, a huge part of the story. But for me as an attorney, it's this behavior that's the real story, because she could have mitigated her circumstances a whole lot had she done this much differently. All right? So We're about to hear from the judge and how he was really angry at this point. Watch this.
The defense has, and Ms. Peters in particular, has remained quite defiant, which is her right, but certainly not helpful for her lot today. After your lies are well documented, and these convictions are serious. I'm convinced you would do it all over again if you could. You're as defiant as a defendant as this court has ever seen. You don't have those histories of drug and alcohol abuse. There's no lifetime of trauma, not even close to the type of mitigating circumstances I would see from many folks.
See, here he's trying to explain to her that you are this privileged, proud, defiant, arrogant woman. You don't have the typical issues of people who are sitting in that very chair and are begging for their lives because they have substance abuse issues. They were raised in very bad neighborhoods and bad families and mental health issues and all of those things that we share with the court during sentencing, during the punishment phase to get sympathy from the court. She has none of that. And in addition, again, she's very arrogant, very defiant. I mean, she is basically accusing the judge of doing illegal, unconstitutional things. Now, if she feels that way, that's fine. She will have the opportunity in her appeal to make those arguments. She will have that. She will get that chance. Now is not the time for that. So this judge is angry. He's teed. All right, let's go back.
Who sit in that chair. No, to the contrary, Ms. Peters, you are a privileged person. You are as privileged as they come. And you use that privilege to obtain power, a following, and fame. And to be sure, there's no doubt in my mind that is exactly what you wanted, and it defies all sense of common sense to believe when you suggested to me a few moments ago that you didn't want this attention. No, you crave it, ma'am. And there is no one in this courtroom who would consider that to be anything other than the absolute truth. There are many things in my mind that are crystal clear about this case. You are no hero, you abused your position, and you're a charlatan who used and is still using your prior position in office to peddle a snake oil that's been proven to be junk time and time again. In your world.
So during your sentencing, if the judge calls you a charlatan, that you abused your power as an official, that you are defiant, that you lack remorse, and that in large part is because of the way you handled yourself during your opportunity to plead with the judge not to send you to prison, you know you have mishandled that situation. And I don't know what those lawyers are sitting there thinking, but I would have right now just like a hole in the pit of my stomach knowing that she is getting ready to receive a very harsh sentence. And not only because of what she did, because this judge was absolutely angry about this election denying business that she was involved in. But he obviously considered mitigating circumstances that would have, I'm certain, that would have reduced that 9-year prison sentence to something much less, and maybe not at all. I mean, he is, after all, looking at a 68-year-old woman, a white woman at that. But she's going, she is fighting for Trump. She is fighting, and she was a hero of this crowd, right? She allowed, again, remember what she did? She allowed people to get into the database of the election of the voters for this particular county. She really abused her power all for Trump. And she continues that thing. And she released a statement after she was found guilty that was defiant. So let's listen to the judge a little more before he imposes sentence.
About you. But at bottom, this case was about your corrupt conduct and how no one is above the law. No one in this country has absolute power. Your position as a clerk and recorder, a constitutional position, does not die.
I can't help but to think when he says no one in this country has absolute power, I can't help but to think that he is sending that message to Trump. Because remember, the U.S. Supreme Court said that Trump, as a former president, and if he's reelected, God forbid, he will have absolute immunity, which basically puts him above the law. I think this judge was sending a message to Trump, and all these MAGA people know, despite what the Supreme Court said, no one is above the law. I think that's what he was saying to the country right there. Let's go back.
And provide you with a means by which to do your own investigation, to not listen to the judiciary, to not listen to the executives higher than you, to not listen to the legislature who sets the law as it may be. This is nonsense. Our system of government can't function when people in government think that somehow, some way, the power they've been given is absolute in all respects. And that's where you fell. You have no respect for the checks and balances of government. You have no respect for this court. You have no respect for law enforcement. And you do not have respect for your fellow colleagues when you were a clerk and recorder who weren't lockstep in your beliefs. Period. Indeed, just weeks before trial, you were apparently doing what I mentioned earlier, that is, over at the clerk and recorder's office where you're not supposed to be, violating the protection order by speaking to employees of that entity with your camera crew in tow. You have no qualms with violating the court's orders because you're innocent, because you didn't do anything wrong. You were just doing your job. You have no problem trying to kick an officer. Your explanation about what happened is preposterous. It's on video. You have no problem lying to officers. It's happened multiple times. They're recorded conversations. It's just more lies. No objective person believes them. No, at the end of the day, you cared about the jets, the podcasts, and the people fawning over you. You abdicated your position as a servant to the Constitution, and you chose you over all else. Yes, you are a charlatan, and you cannot help but lie as easy it is for you to breathe. You betrayed your oath for no one other than you. And this is what makes Miss Peters such a danger to our community. It's the position she held that has provided her the pulpit from which she can preach these lies. The undermining of our democratic process, the undermining of the belief and confidence in our election systems. It's not about questioning it. No one says you can't question, you can't ask. It's completely different. And if you don't understand I can say or do here today, that will change your mind. So the damage that is caused and continue to be caused is just as bad, if not worse, than the physical violence that this court sees on an all too regular basis. And it's particularly damaging when those words come from someone who holds a position of influence like you. Every effort to undermine the integrity of our elections and public's trust in our institutions has been made by you. You've done it from that lectern the voting public provided you with. Everything you've done has been done to retain control, influence. The damage is immeasurable.
Again, this judge is talking to Trump. He's talking to MAGA. He is letting them know that your intentional undermining of our election process based on a big lie is untenable. It is just un-American. I mean, he is letting them have it through this woman. And all the more as he witnessed her arrogant attitude. Like he said, in her mind, she's not guilty. She didn't break the law. She was just doing her duty, doing her job, irrespective of breaking the law. So he is teed with her, and he's making a point to all of MAGA across the country. Bravo for this judge.
And every time it gets refuted, every time it's shown to be false, just another tale is weaved. So I'll begin by saying I've considered all of those purposes of staying of an execution of a sentence. I've mentioned all of them here generally in my comments already, and I find that a stay of any sentence I impose would be wholly unwarranted.
Okay, so right there, that's important. So he says, I have considered reasons why I should not execute sentence today, why I should not send you to prison. And he says, and it's based a lot on the way she conducted herself. It would be, and other things, not just the way she handled herself in court, but the fact, you know, he mentioned that she violated a protective order by speaking to court workers that she should not have spoken to, and had a camera crew with her. So he's like, she is unredeemable at this point. There's nothing he can do, no mercy he could show her to change her mind, because in her mind, she did the right thing regardless of what the law says, regardless of what the legislature has written in the law. She is a part of this MAGA cult community that Trump has created. And again, he's letting her have it. So he's telling her, I've considered all of this. And when you saw her going back and forth with him, I'm sure at that point, that's it. Forget it. Forget it. Whatever he may have been considering doing, forget it at that point. All right, let's go back. That's why I entitled this video, Don't Do This in Court. That's the bigger story here.
Possibility of reversal on appeal, no doubt. I'm at peace with all the decisions I've made here. If anything, I gave you and your counsel far too much leeway at times, but the rulings I made came after much consideration, incredible amounts of internal debate, and I trust in accordance with the applicable law. I consider the sentence here, in this case, what are available to me. Probation. Community corrections wasn't requested, but it wouldn't be an option in any event, and an incarcerative sentence to the Department of Corrections. Probation's focus is rehabilitation. That is, for folks who have minimal criminal histories, low LSI scores like you, Ms. Peters, but where punishment isn't really on the table. It's about putting someone back in the community who's not a risk and giving them a chance to correct those things that brought them before me in the first place. Community corrections, which again isn't available, but nevertheless I'll mention, is another option that I could still order. It's much more stringent than probation, but it's not prison. And it's for folks who have even higher needs. Again, drug addicts, alcohol abusers, and the like. And prison is for those folks where we send people who are a danger to all of us. Whether it be by the pen or the sword or the word of the mouth. Prison is where folks go, where punishment is what we're focused on, because the crime committed is so significant that anything less would unduly mitigate the seriousness of the same. I mentioned before there are no mental health concerns. There's no good reason why you're here, Ms. Peters, other than these are all the active decisions that you made that cost our county significantly, but also more importantly, cost you greatly, Mr. Wood, all the members of the county who worked and trusted you when you asked them to do things that they did on your behalf. It's part of your lies. The expense, the toll is immeasurable. So putting you on probation when you have zero needs that would be met by probation is the very definition of unduly depreciating the significance of what it is that you've done here, the harm that you've caused our community and continue to cause. Community corrections is the same, so prison is the only place that duly meets the purposes of sentencing in this matter. And therefore the sentence and judgment of the court is as follows. As to counsel.
All right, and so he goes on to basically impose a sentence of 9 years. 9 years. That's a long time. And I, as a criminal defense attorney, I don't celebrate that, although I strongly, strongly detest this whole election denying situation. And not only was it problematic after the 2020 election, but those lies continue, and those lies fuel what we are about to and are facing now in the 2024 election. Those same people are out there. Trump is out there pushing these lies. And so no doubt, no matter what happens on November 5th, Donald Trump is going to declare victory. I believe that strongly. And people like Ms. Peters are already pledged to help carry that forward. Even if Kamala wins by millions, the way Joe Biden did. They are still prepared to do exactly what this woman did. I still, again, don't celebrate though. Some of you do. I've saw some people laughing. I just don't. I'm a criminal defense attorney. It's horrible to see people handcuffed and walked away by the bailiffs and know that in this woman's case, she may die in prison for following Donald Trump. As the judge said, not for any other reason, no drug addiction problem, none of that, just following Trump. This is a sad story, and I wanted to share this story with you, but from a legal perspective, this is not the way that you should ever behave in court, especially if you have been found guilty and you are trying now to throw yourself on the mercy of the court to not get the worst outcome. This is not the way you do it. All right? So be very diligent about the 2024 election because, again, those people are still out there. Go to iwillvote.com. Make sure you're still registered to vote. A lot of these states are removing people. They're purging their voting rolls. Make sure you're still registered. Share this website with other people. Help them make sure that they are registered to vote. And let's just get ready for what's coming on the election night, November 5th, 2024. All right, I'm Attorney Augustus Corbett, one half of the Defiant Lawyers. This is the content we bring you on a weekly basis. Thank you for watching this video. Have a good one. Peace.